Hey, paisans, the time has come. On the air since 2009, the independently produced, non-FCC compliant champ of video game talk podcasting. Here comes Tiger Claw Radio. Here's your host, Critical Failure.
Welcome everybody to Tiger Claw Radio. I'm your host, Critical Failure. It is that time again where we talk some video games, do our thing, do what we do. So this week's going to be a little bit different because just yesterday I was online and I was goofing around, and who should I find but Duravka, the gaming beast, our old pal. And since we don't do much together anymore in terms of like producing content, I just decided to turn on the recording software and see what happened. And I got about an hour out of it. So that's going to be the show for this week. A couple of things before we hit in. First and foremost, since it's going to run a solid hour, I want to thank the Patreon sponsors before we head in. And they are Tecmo Balls, Duravka, Hemrock, and Eric Kentroller. Thank you all so much. I hope you're enjoying the party. And lastly, just a quick language heads up. I keep things clean here on TCR. I don't swear, but since it's been so long since we've done something like this, I just kind of let it go, and we said what we said. So there's some naughty language ahead. And with that, I'll see you guys on the other side. Thanks for joining us on TCR. All right, so we are now recording. Don't think of it
Nice.
as like a recording session. Yes,
Yeah, don't worry. Yeah, don't worry, man. Yeah. So anyway, we were talking, and I was thinking, like, because I've been playing, I decided to go back, because I played a lot of Neverwinter Nights, and I finished the Infinite Dungeon. And it was... I didn't count the numbers, because it's like all... But definitely, I'm like quite a lot more. Like, I have like over 500 hours now in Neverwinter Nights, but that's not just... That's not just the Infinite Dungeon. Let's be clear.
Right.
So that's also...
I think I might be the one who's the most autistic about the number counting. I'm always looking at my numbers that I put into games and stuff.
I mean, I can't say that I'm not autistic with that, because I have with GOG I had an issue that it wasn't counting my time, and
oh dear.
And I went through all this process, and I even wrote into the customer service thing. And they say to me very basic bitch tech shit, and that stuff that I did already, but I still did the stuff. Eventually it just started to work again, where like I had to like play the game, let the game run longer, but it did pick it up. It was just really weird. So, but
yeah, that was unfortunate. Here's a
but
question.
I've been playing now.
Were they willing
ahead,
to make any adjustment to your numbers? Because I've always wondered if that was something they guarded closely, or if you were like, hey man, I actually put an extra 10 hours into Daggerfall. Can you just bump my numbers a little bit?
I didn't ask that, but that's kind of an interesting suggestion. I don't know if they would do it, but I think the customer service person that I was writing, I didn't talk with them, like it was through email, obviously. But they like just have I think they just have a script for the most basic stuff.
Sure.
And it's not like, I'm not saying that they don't know the shit and whatever, but they usually said that, you know, it's not supported for Windows 7 anymore, and I'm one of the dinosaurs that is still using Windows 7, because I plan on getting a new computer, and that's why I want to get Windows 10, just around the time they're releasing Windows 11, but I'm not getting Windows 11, so...
11's already out, brother. You got to get your Windows 10 machine while you can, because they're going to go away.
Probably, yeah. So I am getting it soon, but hopefully I can still get Windows 10, because 11 is going to be a pain in the ass, and of course more spyware and shit, but that's just the reality you got to deal with. So
yeah.
But talking about less depressing news, like spywaring on your Windows, I've been playing more RetroArch again, and the last couple of days, and I've been playing NES ROMs, believe it or not.
So I'm looking at your Steam profile, and it looks like you're still poking around with the RetroArch playtest. Did you check out like the standard release yet? Because you know they actually had like a full RetroArch release like in the last 6 months or so.
I had a normal RetroArch setup, like the latest version, whatever.
Yeah.
And I decided to go with the Steam version. To switch to that. I mean, Kaiser was saying that because we wanted to do multiplayer, and it didn't work for some reason. But it probably had nothing to do with the version that we were using. But I think it might have. So I decided to go there because he had the Steam version.
Mm-hmm.
So there probably is a newer version for the vanilla one that you just install. But they're very similar, to be honest. I mean, there's probably stuff in there.
But I mean, if you look up RetroArch on Steam, there's now 2 different entries. There is a RetroArch playtest, which is what you're using, and there's also a standard RetroArch, which is fairly new. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, well, maybe I'll go to that. Is it free?
Yes, but I'm kind of thinking it's going to introduce more problems than it's actually going to fix. But like for the purposes of multiplayer, it's important that we're all on the same page. So I actually have both installed.
I'll get it installed, yeah, for sure, because I found some games that we could play together. And like I've been doing this thing with Game Facts that I started with that like Let's Play series that I'm not really doing anymore. I still have an episode that I had recorded a while ago, but it's just me fucking around with the beat 'em ups, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But where you get with Game Facts, it's like with how you can list games by genre and by system,
mm-hmm.
and you can also list them by difficulty, you know, which I think is like, because you always try finding like a list of games where it's like the easiest on this or this system. It's gonna be hard to find, in my opinion, because I mean I didn't have maybe my Google Foo is bad, but it's easy to find top 10 hardest whatever games, you know, and I just want to see what are actually the easiest games in a certain genre and a certain system, you know?
Yeah.
And the beat 'em up one was where, you know, it's kind of funny because the one theme I've been finding with the easiest games, which actually is not that weird, it's not even that funny, is they're all targeted towards children. So the easiest platformer on the Snes that I played that was also listed, and it's like with GameFAQs, it's just their opinion, man. It's just the vote system, and it does change a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there was this one game called Pokonia, this Japanese-only game. It's like with some cartoon cat that I didn't recognize. It's like a tie-in, obviously, but it wasn't too bad. It's like a game that that's a platformer that you can recommend even a small child, because like you could technically lose, but it's really hard to do because you have like instead of lives, you have time, and you lose a little bit of time when you get killed, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all like, you know, cartoony and like pretty harmless, I'd say. So, but you have like a lot of time, so it's like the only thing that is annoying about it is that when you move around, the camera is a bit like annoying, you know, where it's like moves in a little bit. They didn't do that too well, but yeah. So that one was pretty easy to play through, and it's not too long either. So it's kind of interesting, like just checking out games. Like I would list games in that way, and I decided to do it also at the end. It's just for myself, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Playing through some genres, like some games, and of course with obviously some genres are more represented, and I mean like platformers, Jesus Christ, it's almost 400, like 360 something games, something like that, for just platformers, which I knew that from the NES library, like, well, let's say there's like 800 to 1,000 commercially released games,
mm-hmm.
and then you got still plenty of more I would say that it's also I would count the unlicensed games in there too, but then the pirated games add still a couple of thousand, and most of them are just reprints of the same game, or like some of them are original games, but a lot of them also, even the original games, are just hacked versions, like Somari.
I mean, for a long time that was true, but now we have the that NES like graphical interface for game design. I can't think of what it's called. It's like Family or something. So you can, it's not free. It's like, you know, $25-$30 or something, but you get that thing and you can point and click your way into getting an NES ROM. That's not a hack per se of anything.
No,
I don't know if that's
for
true
sure.
anymore.
Yeah. No, for sure. No. I agree with that. That when I saw when you talked about this program, and I looked at it where they had a Game Boy one where you could make Game Boy games and NES games, and it really where it's drag and drop, point and click, so you don't have to like deal with parser text interface like the really where it's just or assembly style. I'm like really stupid when it comes to programming, but where it's just purely you just type in shit and it's really like clunky and hard to learn, especially if it's an older language and stuff. So especially if you're not like, if you're good with programming and you can pick up these languages, then it's fine. But yeah, I feel like where I agree with you that it will open the floodgates for more NES ROMs that are original games, but not necessarily good ones. But I think there's gonna be a couple.
Yeah, you're right about that.
I mean, when I remember when it was a special thing when you had a new game released way after when they didn't make them anymore. Like I remember they had the Battle Kit game for the NES, and that's the first time. It's probably not the first homebrew NES game for sure, because I saw there was a couple, but it was the first major one where they made a big deal out of it,
Mm-hmm.
and then they had like a couple of games also for the Genesis and for even the Super Nintendo, like systems that they could reverse engineer to figure out how they could make games for that system, because they didn't have the dev kit or anything.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's actually quite hard. I've seen this guy who was making a Genesis game, and although thematically it wasn't very interesting, you played a little fox and whatever. It looked good graphically, but it was like, come on, it's not for me. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is that he got like the original like hardware, the Sega Genesis dev kit hardware, and then but it didn't work right, and he had to do his own system, so it was a pain in the ass. So I think it's cool that people are making like a PC tool to make your own ROMs, and then all you got to do is just put the ROM on a custom cartridge, and you got your own game.
That's it, man.
I mean, that's pretty badass in my opinion. And I thought about it too. Like, I don't know how hard it is, but it feels like it lowered the bar of making a game for these classic systems like the Brick Game Boy or the NES. And I've seen one where they're working one for Super Nintendo. So we'll see. Like, but I think already if you have if you have Game Boy.
The problem with the Game Boy one, NES, I don't have any experience with, because again, I have to pay for a license to do that one. But I tried the Game Boy one a little bit, and it wasn't. I mean, because you don't have to do the programming, like it's just drag and drop. That part is easy. But the thing is, there are certain limitations that the engine just has. Like you can only have X amount of sprites on the screen, and even with that, you can only have X amount of the same type of tile available on any palette. So if you see like a really simple Game Boy like layout in a game, and you think, wow, I could design something way more intricate than that. Well, yeah, maybe you could, but that doesn't necessarily mean the Game Boy will support that many different types of tiles for all the details you want to put. And that's something I didn't realize until I started messing with the kit, which is one of the reasons why I didn't bother getting deep into it, as I figured I'll try this again later on when the Super Nintendo one comes out and there's more stuff I can do. If I'm going to be boxed in like that, I'd rather build a game for the Commodore 64 or something really old,
Yeah. Speaking of the Commodore 64, I did enjoy you talking about that, and also because I wanted to send you a sound comment, but I think it's better if I just talk here, because I have also the Commodore Mini, and I haven't used it in a while, for quite some time, but I did enjoy it. I did manage to get more games on there with like a USB drive. I had to do like an update to the firmware.
Same.
And but once and then I read up on how to do it, and I found like some people made like a pretty cool like where they had multiple games there, and you could they made like a list, and it's sorted by genres and stuff, so it's pretty cool. And it's been pretty cool because like the joystick, of course, I don't like. I have like these pretty cool Super Nintendo controllers, the iNext one, This is not sponsored by it or whatever. It's just
Actually,
it's
I'm
just a
really
good
interested to
controller.
hear because I've tried many controllers and nothing I can find seems to work. Like the compatibility is very, very limited. So what
Yes, it
exactly were
is.
you able to find that worked for it?
It took me a long time to find it, but I remember because uh, like I knew that the joystick is. I'm not. I hate it, And even back when I was a kid, my cousin, he did have a joystick and everything, but we did use eventually. Other people would use controllers, especially the Genesis controller. But this one, because it has the same prong, that you need to put in, So
Do you have like a
um,
link or something by
I
chance?
don't. I could send it to you after we're done with this. It's the iNext controller. That's the one I'm talking about now, for
I,
the Mini.
I next.
It's pretty weird. It's
That's cool.
IN and then another NEXT, but it's a really nice, perfectly copies the Super Nintendo controller. I'm just
Oh
looking
yeah,
at it right now. I'm
perfect.
playing some Dragon Warrior, just grinding.
Yep.
Um, and it's really cool because it has worked with everything. Especially what's cool, it's worked with the C64 Mini. So
Yeah, I
it is.
see. Could you possibly take a look and see if this matches what you have? Because I'm like ready to order this right now.
Oh shit!
We're looking at
I'm
two.
on my phone, but let me get on my. I
It's,
want to edit this out, but
it's $13, but while he's getting ready, just because we're recording anyway, I might as well rattle it off. We're looking at a $13 package for 2 clone SNES controllers, and they're USB controllers.
yeah, it's the same one. Mine, the one I have is black, uh, but this is even better because this is like the original American color.
Mm-hmm.
The one I have, the black one, has the European, the PAL/Japanese color, whereas the green, blue, red, and yellow.
Hold on a
That
second.
doesn't really matter.
Hold on.
Whatever. Who
You
cares?
said the magic word, so I got it. Just one second. Let me get my headphones up. America. All right, there we go. Sorry,
Yeah,
I just
exactly.
felt it inside
America
me.
has the
You,
alternative
you said
lifestyle,
it again. You
pink
said it
and
again.
purple.
America. All right.
Yes,
Oh,
yes, yes. But that's the brand of it. I would, and it should work with the C64 Mini. As far as I've checked it, and it's been a couple of years, not that many, but
if
it
it
should
doesn't
work.
work, it's cool, man. I don't give. This is. It's $13 and Amazon takes returns. It's not your fault if it doesn't work. But I really wanted to play because on my mini I've been playing like shmups, the shoot 'em up destruction kit. That's what just came out like
Nice.
a month ago. Shoot 'em up destruction kit 4, and those games are really hard to play with the joystick. I
Oh
mean,
yeah. Oh,
I mean all games are hard to play with that thing because it sucks. But um, yeah, that was something I was really hoping for was a good controller that worked, and I was really pissed off because I thought, hey, wouldn't it be great to play a Commodore 64 with my $200 arcade stick? Wouldn't that just be the overkill of all overkills? But it
that
didn't.
is bigger than the Commodore Mini. I love it.
Yes, yes. But it was not meant to be, unfortunately.
Sadly, yeah. I would say that it worked with the Commodore Mini. Now, I don't know if it will work with the Commodore Maxi, but I'm guessing since it's the same kind of Raspberry Pi or whatever setup they got in there,
I've
this
read
is an emulation machine.
I've read the
So,
compatibility is the same, but I didn't end up getting a Maxi yet anyway.
yeah, the iNext it does work for me. So that's why I bought it. And yeah, because I tried my other controllers and they didn't work. I had the Logitech one and everything, it didn't work. And I had another one that I don't really use, but because there's some issues with the buttons.
Mm-hmm.
But the iNext one worked for sure. And I got two because it's cool also just to play old school emulators, especially of course Super Nintendo. But it's like a controller you can use for anything, because it's cool for NES because I have the Y and the B for normal buttons, and
Mm-hmm.
then X and A are the turbo. And for shmups, it's like you gotta have that.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
It's I hate developing my carpal tunnel even more by playing these old games where you just have to tap constantly for no reason. You know.
Mm.
So,
Completely. Yeah.
um, but yeah, C64, man, it is. There's a couple of games I could recommend you. because
Yeah, what do you got?
like, have you ever tried out Barbarian, aka Death Sword? Because there's another game called Barbarians, which
Yes.
is you still play a barbarian, but it's different.
Are you
You
talking
know,
about the one-on-one fighting game
the
Barbarian,
what
or
the
is that
one-on-one fighting game. I
where you
talked
can
about this.
decapitate the
Yes,
guy?
exactly, and
Yes,
I still believe, and I do want to make a video on just a short one that was the first time where you could do a bloody fatality in a fighting game. It wasn't in Mortal Kombat, and it preceded it a couple of years to Mortal Kombat.
Yep.
So it just wasn't as It wasn't as known in America, but it was pretty popular in Europe. And yeah, Barbarian. It takes a little bit to get used to because it has like where you push down the button and you push a direction to do a certain attack. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So and the decapitation move is you got to push back, and as you push forward, you spin with the sword, and it's hard to pull up because the enemy can hit you, and also the enemy has to be lower on health for the decapitation to work. So he doesn't have to be on the very end. It's not like in Mortal Kombat. It's actually more realistic. You can actually end a fight quicker like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I told this story. I probably did, but one of my most vivid childhood gaming memories was me and my cousin, my good cousin, same age, and we were playing on his Commodore 64 way back in the 80s or early 90s. I don't know anymore. Like we were pretty young. I'd say somewhere late 80s, whatever. The point is that we were playing Barbarian, and we loved that, and because we were really into Conan and shit like that, you know, through the
Sure.
comics and the movie, it was a big thing. You know, that was the thing. It was like at one point it was ninja, and then it became ninjas. Whatever was the popular. You know how kids are. You know, it's always
Yes.
something else.
Yes, I do.
And you know it better than me. So, but and we got pretty good, and we would always try to get the decapitation move to shorten the fight. You know, and it was cool because you got the head chopped off, and then you have a goblin come when somebody's defeated, and he drags the
He drags the
corpse
body
away.
away. Yes.
But the cool thing is and he laughs like with the Commodore 64 sound. The cool thing is when you decapitate the head, he drags the corpse away, and then if the head is in front of him, he kicks it, and it's fucking great. And he just walks. There's no kicking animation, but the head flies away and bounces around. It's fucking great.
Yeah.
But the point is that where we got pretty good at the game, both of us, and we were, when you're a young kid and you play with your cousins or brothers or friends, you get competitive, especially fighting games. It's
Yep.
weird.
Yes, I do.
But everybody knows that,
we did that
But
in my house as well.
and me and my cousin, just as quick, I'm going to finish the story then.
You got it.
We managed to get the decapitation, and we were both pretty wounded, so we would have been eligible for decapitation, so to speak, and we both get it done at the same time, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And just before it hits and both our heads are supposed to fly, the game crashes. Because in the game code, there was no inevitability, there was no, how you say that, situation where both can be decapitated, so the game crashes. So the barbarians disappear, the background is still there, but there's some graphical glitches, and the game and the computer just stops, and the color has changed. And me and my cousin, we laughed our asses off because we broke the game, and we laughed so hard. It was great. It was fucking great.
It's weird to think about now because you look back on it and it's like you broke a Commodore 64 game, which by and large was very likely made by one person. Whereas,
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's I played that game when I first ordered my C64 Mini. Because remember, I went through two of these things. I ordered a C64 Mini, and there was something wrong with it, so it wouldn't stay powered on. And I was never able to get it to the point where I could like put my own games on it. Worked okay for a little while with the inbuilt stuff. Second I tried to do that firmware fix, didn't work. I had to send it back. So I actually took a gamble and got a second one. That's when it started working. But when the first one broke, I played C64 games for like a really short period of time with the joystick on my laptop, and the one I had the most fun with was Barbarian.
It's a classic game. It's probably, there's not that many one-on-one fighter games on the C64, it's obvious, but that one is like an exception.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was designed for these old PCs. There's also a shitty like CGA DOS version. It's also known as Death Sword. That was the US title. And there's a game that is there's this one game, and I can't think of the title. I might Google it in a second, but it's in one of the games that is inbuilt.
What's up, Alex?
And
We're recording, but feel free to hang out.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway, there's this game where you are this little weird blob thing with the two legs, and you have to go up the tower. There's a tower, and the graphical effect was really cool at the time. How it like turned.
Was the tower spinning?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. What is that game called? Because I think we've had this conversation, but I don't know what that game is called.
I think something like Globalist or something.
Let's see if I can find it. 64. Globetrotter?
No, not Globetrotter. Globalist. Something like that. I don't know. I could be very wrong.
Whatever. It's not important.
The point is that was a game that I also got like into.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, because it's a hard game, because that's the thing about the C64. This is in the time where games were really hard, either by design or by them being bad. Because there's thousands of games out there. But it's kind of weird because they were hard, but they were mostly by design. But because we were kids and that was what we had, we had that, and me and my brother, we had the NES. So we would switch to the NES because it loaded faster. That was the main thing. That's the C64. It takes forever to load a game.
Sure, yeah.
And like there was some games that now they were like considered classics. In a way, they still are. But
did you have the cassette drive? We never had that in my house.
I didn't have this. We didn't have a C64. My cousin had one, and he had the cassette drive. And I remember my cousin. That's my older cousin. That's not the one that I played. He had also a C64, but like everybody had one. That was the gaming system for a long time, especially before the wall fell. But my older cousin had a C64, and I remember we were really little, and when he would load up a game, I remember use a screwdriver to turn it because it didn't load the game well, and I think he only bought one legit game. Everything else was pirated, and it was great. It was so weird, the cassette one, because as a kid even I thought that's fucking weird, man. Because I heard floppy disk, and when he had the floppy disk, which was more floppy drive, it was a little bit better. But I remember like him loading The Last Ninja. That's part of a trilogy of top-down kind of action-adventure games where you're a ninja, but it's all diagonal, so it looks cool. It's a little bit hard to play, to say the least, but it's actually pretty cool. And because, Ninja was great, and that was one of the first Ninja-themed games that I remember, that and Revenge of Shinobi. But go ahead, yeah.
Cassettes are still used in as a commercial data storage format. If you were to hire a company to like run a backup system for you, all right, so I need you to back up all of the data for the next round, the website, a database, whatever. And I'm going to hire a company to make a copy of this every 2 nights. So they do that in the middle of the night. They run a backup for you, which is a service that you can get. They usually do that with cassette tapes because you can put like 20 terabytes or something on a single tape. It's not fast.
Yeah.
You can't run anything from it, but backup services, they still use them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also,
That's
just to interject, because I actually know a lot about this, is that it has a longer lifespan for data storage as long as you don't reuse the magnetic tape.
True.
Tape as a whole can last about up to 120 years just off of magnetism, as long as you're not using it consistently. Meanwhile, things like CDs and DVDs usually have a shelf life of about 20 to 30 years, depending on when you want to start being concerned about corruption of data.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. This disk rot
So
to be considered
there
for
you
sure.
go
Yeah.
to support your own thought process, CF.
And hasn't that been such a thing lately of corruption of data with CDs and DVDs and stuff?
Yeah.
I still don't have a single PS1 game that's on the fritz, but whatever.
Really?
I have a
My
I have
PS.
a music CD of Phil Collins that was released in 1988, still fully functional.
Yeah, but aren't all the Saturn games starting to go or something?
Well, here's the thing. You gotta not confuse bad production quality with the actual lifespan of a CD, because there were several, like the Philips CDI
Mm-hmm.
that was manufactured by invalids, and so a good chunk of the CDs were actually designed to be destroyed within the first decade of its manufacturing because they sucked at their job.
Mm.
It literally was because when they were making the CDs, they uh, they didn't properly seal the outer layer of the disc, and so that's how disc rot occurs. So when people like to pretend they know what they're talking about, they keep forgetting the core essentials like what disc rot actually is. It's a manufacturing defect. It's not a way of life. It's a defect.
Right, but
Okay.
if you're trying to collect a product that has that defect across the board,
Then
then
you need to not be stupid and stop collecting that thing. I mean, it's like trying to actively capture a childhood. You know what I mean? Like in real time. Like after a certain point, it just becomes a waste of time.
yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
Moving on.
It's hard to comment on that because I don't actively collect for the Sega Saturn or the Sega CD or whatever console experiences that disc
Hey,
rot.
I,
What'd you
I
say, Leslie?
actively collect on every console. I just don't collect everything.
Yeah, but you don't you don't hoard though. I mean, you play games with
I would say otherwise with like my 400 games from like 4 different systems.
all right, because we've gone down that rabbit hole before. But you, the one among the group, by and large, with certain exceptions, because I know you probably have a bunch of stuff that's like these are my games, they're not going anywhere.
Mhm.
You get rid of stuff when you're done with them in terms of video games, don't you?
If they are not great.
Okay, okay. So
I am an archivist of things that are actually good or things that I like. One
that's
of
the
the other.
difference. Okay, so you're not concerned about having 100 games for X
I
console.
don't
You're
need
concerned.
all 8 versions of Madden on the
Yeah.
SNES.
Why not? They're all good.
Well, you know what?
I
That's
don't think
fair. It's fair.
there's probably
So,
actually
anyways,
the
C64
SNES
talk. I
Madden
don't want
game.
to derail you.
Okay, that's unfortunate because I enjoy it, but
No. I
Okay.
thought it was cool.
I appreciate.
I knew some about this stuff, but still, there's always new stuff to be learned. I mean, Swingle it's the master of wisdom for sure.
Yeah, you talk about derailing as if it's such a bad thing, but it's not like I have like a set meeting agenda that I need to cover. It's like, come on, man, I gotta hit all these points. We gotta talk about Skyrim more.
I just
Exactly.
didn't know if you were going to be reeing all over the place. Where it's like, I'm so frustrated.
No, no, I no. I think I've reached a
So
point where I'm comfortable enough reeing out loud if I'm gonna re.
Well,
exactly.
plus, if I distract, sometimes you just forget exactly what you even were trying to talk about,
Oh,
and
that
so
does
that's why I was
happen.
considering that.
Yes, that
That's what I was
happens.
considering.
Okay, fair enough. When we left off, we were talking about Commodore 64, and we brought up the tape drive and its practical usage, and we went into tape format and CD format from there. Returning
Yeah.
now to the Commodore 64, you said you had a cousin who had one, and he had like one authentic tape game, and all the rest were pirated, right?
All the rest were pirated, and he didn't stuck long with the tape. I remember he got a disk drive
Mm-hmm.
on the Christmases. I remember it was a big deal, floppy disk drive, and course, he was like he's a kid. I mean, his dad and I mean his dad is an electrician, my uncle, but he also was into car repair. And his older brothers, they were like his oldest brother was a car mechanic. The other one was interested. He's an electrician, but he still dabbled with that. So he was also really into cars, obviously. So a lot of his games were racing games, which were cool, like Stunt Car Driver, I remember. And I don't know if he had that for Amiga or C6. I think for C64 was the Street Rod game. You probably know this from the DOS version, where it's like 50s, 60s, hot rod kind of style,
Sure.
racing for pink slips. And then it had a pretty cool, in a way, pretty unique, like where you could change motors and tune up your car and everything. It's pretty cool. And you could even put decals on your car and everything. It's pretty nice. There was like the guys you raced against. They were like multiple different people. You have to go to the what is it? Like a malt not malt shop, like a it's like a drive-in McDonald's, but it's like more like 50s style. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the fandom zone. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, but that one's pretty cool. I was more interested in other games, obviously, but I still liked them. Still played with them. Like a game that I've been looking at, of course, a classic that I got to mention because I've used the sound clip from Impossible Mission. I don't know if you played that at all or again or
extensively. Because it's preloaded on the C64 Mini, and that's when I dug into it.
Yeah. That one is hard to get into, but it is fun to play just for the sound clips because as a kid I was so amazed.
Stay a while, stay forever.
You stay a while, stay forever, and it's great.
Yeah.
But the way how you can, like as Swingle was saying, you got to play the game before you play the game, and you got to have the manual, the soft DRM. Because in the manual, basically, when you're searching, you're actually searching for different code symbols because you're a spy and you're trying to shut down it's a mad scientist lab, and you sneak in, but then you cannot go out. And that's why he said stay forever.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like in the time where the manual was really a huge part of the gameplay because also for soft DRM, but also because they couldn't put in all the text and everything because there was very limited space, just a couple of kilobytes basically.
Mm-hmm.
The point is that where we didn't get because there is a room because it's randomly generated maps, I think, and there is a room usually where there is the code computer, and then you got to put in the codes.
Mm-hmm.
And I have still not been able to beat it. But I do enjoy just having on the screen and searching for the clues and avoiding the robots,
Yeah.
and hearing the crazy sound bites. Also, when you fall,
I'm right there
scream.
with you. I knew I was never going to solve that puzzle, but I just wanted to explore the map and do the rooms. That's all.
Yeah, that's a game where, however, another platformer at least that you can get far in, although it can get challenging, is the infamous Mario ripoff, the Great Gianna Sisters, which, in my opinion, is still a great game.
It is a great game.
It's not a complete. Yes, the first level and then the second level are similar, but then it gets different from the level design. And it's really its own game because also, you have a fireball, but it bounces more, it acts a bit differently. And it's got great music for, if nothing else, the Chris Hulsbeck. Yeah, I have it on my page on my internet, but just for memory. But Chris Hulsbeck is pretty legendary also for Amiga music stuff, but Katakis is a pretty cool shmup. I haven't played that in a long time, but I did play it with my friend, my German friend, who had a C64, and then we went over. He had then a Genesis. That's where I played a lot of my Genesis games because I didn't have one.
Mm-hmm.
But Katakis is kind of like more or less a clone, but a good one from a Gradius, where you can have also the same kind of weapon boosts up.
Oh, nice.
But it had also good music, and it was, as far as I remember, it was one of the better shmups on the C64. So Katakis with a K. But then again, that one I haven't played in a while, but I really should again.
You think you'll bite on the Amiga Mini?
If I have the money, for sure. Here's a game. there's this platformer called Creatures and Creatures 2.
Mm-hmm.
And Creatures was weird because we had Creatures 2. And Creatures was weird. And I actually wanted to review that game, but I'm not really into that stuff anymore, so I'll just talk about it here. Is that in Creatures 2, but also in Creatures 1, the subtitle is Torture Trouble, okay? And the thing is that the game looks like, you have like this little fuzzy cartoon creature, and it's like all cartoony, and you're fighting the blobs. And the first one is a straight up platformer. Very, very nice graphics for the C64. One of the best I've seen.
Do you know what,
the
Sean?
platforming.
I,
Yep.
I have to say, I'm going to cut you off here. I want to go back a second because you're talking about how like you don't do the real reviewing thing anymore. I have a feeling you would really enjoy the 2021 YouTube format these days because nobody likes production value anymore. They want you to have lights and they want you to have sound, but now it's just like, all right, if I'm gonna do a review of a game for the C64, we'll just sit down and talk about it for a few minutes. That's really it. Because we know nobody's going to watch it anyway. It's not going to get on any recommended lists or anything like that. So you don't have to overthink it anymore. Whereas 10 years ago, we used to be like, let's make a short film about Barbarian on the C64. It's just not the case anymore.
Every review is a Twitch clip from a stream.
Yeah. It's actually funny because
that's how bad it is.
Somebody saw my Baldur's Gate review that I did put in quite a lot of time into, and they actually said, "Oh, that's really cool that you're doing it at this more older style where you actually not just play a game and talk over it, but actually edited it and showed for when I talk about, I don't know."
Oh, yeah.
Like I don't know. I talk about, let's say, beholders in the game, and then I show a beholder, or I talk about the Minsk and Boo, then I show a little clip where he's saying, one of his quotable lines. So, and it took a lot of time because I played through the game and then all this stuff. So
the big effort reviews are definitely gems in the rough, but it's no longer really the only way.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I agree. It's not really no longer the thing. It's like mostly people do more of the talking stuff because at least with YouTube, you gotta like if you want to like get the subscribers and the views. I don't know what that was, but and you want to like I guess make money or whatever. Then you gotta post regularly, very regularly. So it's people have moved on to more and more like podcast style or like semi. As you said, it's a Twitch like guy, it's and it has been for a while now. So I'm also thinking about that, just doing it in the Beastcast. But yeah, I think
Beastcast. You know what I found out about podcasts recently?
What?
Prisoners in maximum security prison, for the most part, don't have access to YouTube, but they do have access to podcasts. So those are people you could reach. You could reach maximum security prisoners with the Beastcast.
That's great, man. If they are into like my weird rants of modern day movies and talking about old shit like He-Man, then sure. There's got to be people in my age range, in there. So, yeah. So, great Gianna Sisters. That's a game I can definitely recommend. As a kid, I didn't beat it, but I did get further because there's like certain levels where it gets a bit harder. Like they do usually on C64 games, but Last Ninja is a cool game, but it is hard to play because it has this this style where it's bird's eye view, but it's all like the slanted how do you call this again? I forgot it.
Isometric,
thank you. So which it looks really cool, but they want you to do certain like platforming puzzles and stuff, so it's a little bit harder. But if you can get into the style, if you can get over that hurdle, it's actually pretty cool, and it's got really cool music, and it's got 3 games of it. Like the first 2 I think are on the N64 as well, but there's remakes on the Amiga, and there was the third one. And I remember as a kid, the third one had this huge on the Amiga, the whole intro movie where it was, as a kid I thought it's the most badass thing, like the ninja comes out and he's like secretive, and he throws a ninja star into the guy and everything, and it was, like, it's kind of fun. Like, I'm really happy because I actually bought us a magazine where it talks almost exclusively about all like older games, but especially new games, but for old systems, like you've been talking about. So I want to get that magazine out and maybe talk about some and check which ones have been in development. It's like I was amazed on how many games are being made, and it's like obviously systems like the Commodore 64, ZX Spectrum, Amiga, they're all computer systems. So if you can learn the language like BASIC or like use a editor as like you do the shoot 'em up engine that they have for the Commodore or the adventure game engine. They got multiple engines already. That's why there was more games. I mean, I'm not saying they're super great, but people still managed like making a text adventure. Yeah. People made text adventures. There's tons of text adventures because all you have to do mostly is type, and then I'm guessing there was a text adventure maker. If you wanted, you could put in like graphic. That might have been a little bit harder to do, but not impossible. It was. I also remember there was really cool music software and drawing software. Like there was one music software that was cool because my cousin and my brother's a musician now, and they would fuck around with that. And when you played a tune, there was a little graphic and a little figure came out for that tune. But anyway, I went off of what I wanted to say just quick with Creatures 2 Torture Trouble, because in that game, the first one was a straight up platformer, but there was the weirdness already also. But in the second one, it's all focused on that because it looks all cartoony and cute, but literally in the game, it's a little platformer, and you have to get there because you can see one of the big monsters is torturing one of your fellow creatures.
Oh, that's crazy.
And
I'm looking at the box art right now.
Dude, there's fucking in the box art you don't see it. And then there's fucking gory ass bloody deaths. And my cousin, we would have like pirated versions of all the games, so you could like turn on cheats. So we were just curious and see how it ends basically, and we use like cheats to beat it. I think, or we might have beat it in legit. I don't know anymore.
Back in the days when buying a copy of the game didn't necessarily guarantee you a ticket to see the ending. You had to, yeah.
Yes, but the thing is, it was like gory all throughout. And if you didn't stop the creature from doing it, then you could see the gory death of your friend. And in the end, when you beat all the levels, for Creatures 2, also very nice graphics, by the way, they take the boss of the monsters, the big monsters. Creatures are like little weird Fraggle Rock guys, right?
Yeah.
That's an old reference there. That's what they reminded me of, something like that. And they grab the main leader, they tie him down, and they use a fucking chainsaw in him, and gore comes out. As a kid, I'm not kidding. As a kid, I was fucking shocked. I was like, because I was really little. I didn't really see a horror movie or anything. That's probably one of the first goriest things I've seen, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? Because you would, at least in my opinion, in that time, you would have never seen that on a Nintendo game, especially not a a licensed Nintendo game.
For sure.
Like the goriest thing probably that a game that I didn't have was the Commando one where you have the little grappling arm, right? And
sure.
when you defeat Hitler, his head explodes. But obviously, probably that's why I didn't have it in Germany, because they changed it. But I didn't have that game, so I didn't know about that at the time, So this was before I even played Barbarian, and this was before Mortal Kombat. I was like, these creatures, they're like the fucking little psychopaths, But I mean, the monsters, they were torturing them too, so they're not great either. But it's just like, what kind of snuff video game is this with cartoon characters, But this was the Wild West of the C64. Yes, some crazy ass shit.
Sometimes I forget just how much is left undiscovered for me on the C64, and not just the C64, but the old computer scene.
Oh yeah. Actually, I'm the same way because there's so much. Every time I think, I've seen all of it, it's like no. Yeah, even with the NES, I've been going through my NES ROMs. There's still games where I'm like,
Oh, by the way, I'm glad you brought up the NES. Just real quick, because I know you asked about this on the forums.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Not using RetroArch, but if you get a native copy of NES-topia, as the executable,
Yeah.
that will give you zapper support. I was able to get Duck Hunt up and running and zapping with a mouse on NES-topia.
Nice. Then I'll try it that way. I wanted to get my retro achievements, but maybe I'll do it that way. I know. It's AIDS, but whatever.
Don't forget, guys. The NES is the greatest console of all time.
It's a great console. I'm going for a complete collection.
Nintendo. Actually, I found out like the more I play ROMs, is that where, because I had this where I had the GameFAQs list on easiest to hardest, but at least I decided to go with the platformers where I'm gonna go with like, the highest rated, and because if you go like through easiest to hardest, often you go through a lot of bad shit. There was so much like just really bad NES games or just semi decent kind of shit,
Yeah.
But then when I went back to like highest rated, I was like, oh yeah, there was some good games. Mario, Luigi Mario, Mega Man Mario,
Mega Man Mario, that's right. Mega Man 1, Mega Man 2,
Mega Man 2, Mega Man 3,
Mega Man.
You can Zelda 1,
I like Mega Man
Zelda
3.
2.
Zelda 2, man. He's like Zelda 2. It's not like Zelda 1, it's Zelda 2. People don't like it. I don't understand. It's like,
Exactly, yeah. I tried out Little Samson, and because I always heard that, this game, it costs like $500, costs like $20,000. I don't know what the fuck. This is like rare and whatever.
Yeah.
But it actually is pretty charming. It does feel a little bit like Fantasy Mega Man in the theme, and graphics are really nice, and it plays pretty well,
I never gave it a try. The only reason I know about it is because of the dollar value.
Same here, but actually, like, yeah, it's a game with video accelerator graphics that are pretty nice, and it plays pretty well. I think you'd enjoy it. I think with C64, as I said, there's so much to explore. There's like, there's a one that you probably played on another system, but I like the C64 version, Boulder Dash.
Yes,
that one is really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a new Boulder Dash that just came out for the C64. It's like Boulder Dash Junior 4 that just came out.
Oh, nice. I like that.
They're still making those. Or somebody is still making them. Probably not the same people.
There's a game that came to mind now that I played, and we played it in multiplayer because it was like turn-based. It was I call those the economic simulations, Sims, like that.
Sure.
And that one was Oil Imperium, and Oil Imperium we played it as kids. I remember when with the same guy that had the Genesis that I told, and he had 3 other siblings, and I think my brother was there too. And we all took you could change your office, and it was pretty cool because there was some arcade mode gameplay where when you had to drill, you had to use the joystick to keep the drill centered and take care that the drill doesn't break, because then you lose a lot of money and shit. And it was actually really weird, but it was fun to play in multiplayer because everybody took a turn, and then you could compete who's obviously who's making more money and shit. And there was you could change your office and everything. It was pretty neat. And yeah, like what was the game? Oh, yeah, well, Turrican is great on the Amiga as well, but I think the C64 version is pretty decent, obviously.
Yeah.
Like Turrican, I mean, it's hard. It's a hard platformer game, but it's fun to explore and play through, even with cheats. Oh yeah, here's a game. I mean, there's lots of the games that existed on other systems, like Pirates, but because we did have the NES version of Pirates, which is great. But I do enjoy the C64 one as well.
You mean like Sid Meier's Pirates?
Sid Meier's Pirates, yep, the original.
I continuously forget that there's an NES version of that game. I can't imagine it being any good on the NES. Was it?
at least as when we were kids, maybe it hasn't aged as well, but when we were kids, we had a blast playing it through and trying to get the best ending, or laughing when we were like, ended up as beggars or something, you know. Because you could have like a game where you had like an ending, so to speak, you know.
Yeah.
Of course, like Maniac Mansion, Zach McCracken. Those are actually really nice versions. I mean, you know, you played it on the NES and everything, but the C64 version, I'd say, I think that might have been the system that they originally designed it for. Now, it's pretty much like, for you, probably it's not a big deal because it's pretty much identical to the DOS version.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It's probably, at least, there's probably more games that I haven't thought about. There's the one called Barbarians. That is not the Barbarian game. That's from Psygnosis. And that one is more like you still play a Barbarian.
Is that the same Psygnosis that eventually came out with Destruction Derby and Destruction Derby 2?
Yes, Psygnosis is kind of a weird company.
Okay. I remember this.
They're the same guys that did Shadow of the Beast, you know, the guy that I put in the Beast Bar.
Mm-hmm.
They were all about flash style over function, because their games, a lot of times, especially the covers for the box art, they got like this artist who did like these really trippy art style. He did it also for the band Yes. I forgot his name.
Mm-hmm.
Roger Dean, I think that was the artist. Yes. And the game of Barbarian was also released on the C64. Obviously, on the Amiga it looked better, but I felt it on the C64 it played better because it was one of those. They had this style of game where now I couldn't probably get into it. It's just because of the controls. Because as a kid, it was a game that I could actually play through.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're a barbarian, it's side scrolling, and you have to go. It's very standard setting wise. You go into a cave, you fight monsters. There's like platforms you got to jump over, very standard, right? And the difference is that it has this weird control where you can see on the bottom a bunch of icons, you know, go forward, run forward, attack, whatever, throw something, you know. And you have to use the joystick to go on these and do it in the right time and everything. So it was a pain in the ass, but I remember as a kid, it was a game that I could actually beat, you know. But I didn't quite beat it because once you get to the very end of it, there's like a monster you fight, and the way I used to kill him, I think you find a magic shield because he shoots these fireballs. It was like all like as I said, that's why I felt more like an action adventure, like a side scrolling, but kind of linear. The point is that he shoots the fireball, use the shield, and it reflects back on him, and then he dies. And then there's just it. You're still there in the game. And then there's lava,
mm-hmm.
and I didn't know what to do, but apparently you have to go all the way back out of the cave, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I would do as a kid, I thought, okay, well, the game is ending, so we would just then jump into the lava and just be done with it, do a suicide, because we thought that's the end of the game. Technically, it was, but you have to get out of the cave, you know, like. But of course, with these games, they didn't tell you these things unless you had the manual, of course. Soft DRM.
You filthy pirates. You pirate scum.
Arr.
All right. Yeah. Let's see. So while you were talking, Swingle put in text that the Colony Wars was also Psygnosis. Do you remember Colony Wars? We played that game.
The name. Oh yeah.
Space shooting.
Wait.
Space shooting on the PS1. Come on, we were big Wing Commander fans, so we knew about this game.
Kind of.
It was a double disc game for the PS1 that had like a 2-faction sort of deal. And the original game, I can't remember which faction was which, but the original game had its story, and the sequel was like the reverse faction facing who you played as in the first game. Couple of things stuck out to me is James Earl Jones did the narration between missions, and we locked on it when we first started playing it because it was low poly, so it still felt like good old, you know, Wing Commander on the MS-DOS, like pretty close to that. Yeah, it's a good game. I actually ordered that for like a physical copy. Probably it's been a while now. It's probably like 6 or 7 years ago, and never showed up. Just didn't show up. Yeah, no big deal. But never took the time to order it a second time. Yeah, that was a good game. I really enjoyed Colony Wars. Wouldn't mind playing it again.
I honestly just heard the name. I haven't played that one yet. Like PS1 is still something where that's something I still need to explore more. But it does look cool. Like the name, I heard, but that's it.
Yep. Oh, I think that might be the sound of doom.
You gotta
All right.
explore all 11,000 copies.
All right,
of
gentlemen.
different games of PS1.
I gotta get out of here. See you guys.
Bye bye.
That's TCR for the week. Big thanks to the Gaming Beast for sitting in with us. And to everybody who wrote in for the fail bag. I'll get to all your comments next week. In the meantime, I hope everyone has a really good Thanksgiving. Have a good one.